5 scores! Rick Bud.
We've decided to get ourselves back in the game again with our podcast.
Rick Bud and Gary Gagner.
Probably the craziest story that you're ever going to hear about hockey.
We're going to be coming back to you on a regular basis.
You are listening to Squid and the Ultimate Leafs Fan.
Hello, Canada and hockey fans of the United States and Newfoundland, and an extra big hello to Canadian servicemen overseas.
Well, welcome everyone to episode 58 of the Squid and Ultimate Leaf Fan Show. I'm Mike Wilson, the Ultimate Leafs fan. Joining me as always, my winger, Ricky Squid Vibe. Squid, how are we keeping today, outside of the technical problems?
Well, those are the worst problems to have because I don't have anybody around here that can fix those things, Mike. But other than that, I'm doing okay.
Well, that's good to hear, Squid, because today our guest has another very impressive resume who's basically done everything in the game, including making ice. Drafted 12th overall by the New York Rangers in 1983, would enjoy a 15-year pro career, formed Custom Ice Inc., coached including your son, Justin, in his early years, worked in player development with the Vancouver Canucks, currently a player representative of Wasserman Group. Please welcome to the Squid and Ultimate Leaf Fan Show, Dave Gagner. Now, Dave, I don't want to ask you how you're doing today, but rather how many jobs have you completed today?
I don't keep track of that stuff. I did golf though, so I don't. It's not all work. So, although
that's good.
Although Squid's probably golf with me, it's work when I golf. So, yeah. I just grind it out there, and yeah, no, it's great. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Great to have you. Now, Dave, you're one of the principals of Wasserman Hockey. Explain to the viewers what you guys do. Is it strictly player agency? But just walk everybody through what that is all about. Yeah,
basically, we're a hockey agency. We were with Bobby Orr, but Wasserman came to us. They've grown their whole agency, sports agency, over the years through acquisitions, and they hadn't been in hockey yet, so they targeted us. And long story short, Jeff and I agreed to go and join the group, and we took some of our clients over, and we became Wasserman Hockey. And since then, we've purchased 2 other agencies, the Acme Group and a group in Western Canada, Rich Evans runs. So it just made us a little bit more complete, a lot more complete actually. And it's great. I mean, we got a great group of clients. And it's fun to be a part of their journey throughout their hockey careers, like Squid and I had. And it's a little different nowadays. The players are making a little bit more, but I mean, it's the same kind of thing. I mean, other than the financial part of it, it's the same kind of things that they deal with, that we try to help them through the adversity of the game and helping them become the best players they can become, and having the best careers and enjoying the whole ride. So I really enjoy it. And Jeff Jackson and I spend a lot of time together. Jeff and I grew up together basically, and have known each other forever. So I really enjoy it, and we hope we're helping our young clients get the most of their careers.
Well, speaking of your young clients, with what's happened in hockey away from the NHL this year, with the shortened schedules, no OHL play, how challenging was it for you guys trying to represent your clients first off? I mean, it's obviously unprecedented, so there's no Cole's Notes booklet for guidance.
Well, yeah, I mean, for everybody, it was the same, right? I mean, we were all frustrated, but I mean, there was a pandemic going on. I mean, hopefully everybody had to stay healthy. There were some points in times, though, over the time when you see other regions tackling it and trying to make it go, like the USHL or the European leagues. Like we had some players go and play in Europe. We had some players, playing in the US, but they weren't allowing our players here in Ontario or for the most part in most of Canada to play. So it was frustrating because, it gets political too. I mean, I understand the safety of everybody is the utmost importance, but it is for everybody throughout the world. So why can some people figure out how to do it and we didn't seem to do it? That was what's frustrating for us. But we're trying to help our players as much as possible, and you just take it day by day. And all our guys stayed with it. When they could train on the ice, they did. We tried to help them with skill coaches. We it's kind of what we do, is put together skates for our guys and make sure that they're with the right athletic trainers as well, so that they're getting the best advice for their strength and conditioning. We take on some of these kids at 14, 15 years old. So it's a long journey.
It's great.
Dave, would you say that throughout this, well, we call it a normality or whatever, that, do you think there's going to be a lot more diamonds in the rough, guys that are going to be, because guys didn't play last year. So in college, a lot of college players, a lot of junior players, so they weren't seen by a lot of scouts or a lot of general managers. So they're not going to get picked as high. And perhaps those are the guys in the third or fourth round that we've never seen before are all of a sudden going to become good NHL players. Absolutely.
There's going to be some surprises now more than ever from this group, from the 03s and 04s and even like for the OHL draft, the 05s, like none of them played. So, GMs are going to watch skill skates. I don't know really how you can tell too much from that. So, I mean, you can't really tell hockey sense at all for sure. But they did as much work as they could with video. They got video from the prior year when they played Bantam, or when they, when the OHL kids played in the 1920 season before the shutdown, and just did their best. But yeah, you're right. There's going to be some guys that are low picks that are going to be better than first rounders. It's just one of those years.
I was going to ask you, how difficult was it dealing with the mental state of your clients, keeping them focused on their conditioning and keeping a positive outlook while not playing?
Well, to be quite honest, I think I was really happy with how most of them handled it. It was frustrating for them, but I think most of the guys stayed more positive than some of the adults. So, I don't know, like they just, all their friends were in the same boat. I think they all felt like that kind of unity about the whole process. But yeah, I mean, there was frustration, and some of our clients were upset they couldn't get jobs in Europe, kind of thing, because they saw some young players going over, but there were few jobs, and there was a lot of risk going over there. What if there was a pandemic, or they get blown up and they had to get quarantined in that area and they couldn't get home? There was a lot of difficult decisions to make, but a lot of guys wanted to go over and play in Europe, and some did. Like we had, as an example, Evan Bouchard went and played in Sweden for a couple months, and I thought it was great. I told him it was the greatest experience he will probably have, because it's not many people get a chance to go and play in a different country like that, and learn different culture and different way of playing the game, maybe too. It just rounds out your whole knowledge of the game, I think, and makes you a more complete person as well. So I wish we could have done it for more guys, but the guys that were able to do it, I thought it was they took advantage of it.
Dave, let's go all the way back, obviously, to the beginning, your early hockey days. I mean, we're going back a long way, I know. Don't get me wrong. Going back, not as far as it would be with me, fortunately for you, but like start at the beginning when you started playing hockey and growing up, and then on to junior and so on. Just give us a little idea of what it was like growing up. I believe you were in Chatham, correct?
It's too interesting for people to know about my growing up in Chatham, Ontario. But I mean, I just started playing just like all the other kids in our area. I was pretty good at it from a young age. I had older brothers that were good players. So, when you grow up in a family with that type of example set, the standards were pretty high. So you come home, my brother scored 4 or 5 goals. If I only got a couple, I was not very good, So, so I mean, you kind of grow up with that standard, and eventually I left home. We had a really good junior B team in my hometown, but they were all 19 and 20-year-olds. Well, that doesn't bode well for a 15-year-old trying to make the junior B team, right? So I had to leave, played Newmarket for a year. It went very well, better than I could ever have imagined. I got to live with a great family there and had a lot of support, and had a far better year than I could have ever imagined, and got drafted by Brantford. And again, going there, it was fabulous. We had Dave Draper as a coach. I got to play with, a lot of good players, and met rekindled my relationship with Jeff Jackson. Jeff played in Dresden growing up. He was a rival of our team in Chatham. Even though they were a small town, they had that group that was really special. The 65 birth years, if you're into that. But they were really good. They were really good, and they won their All-Ontario championship every year, that team. But anyways, long story short, it was my junior career kind of went well in Brantford, and then I ended up going to the Olympic program in my last year. I had to forego my last year of junior to do that, and it was a tough decision because I wanted to stay with the Brantford team, but and I felt like I kind of at the same disappointed some people there in Brantford, but I ended up going to the national team for that year, my final season of junior, and playing for Dave King.
Now, how did that come about?
You know what? I was drafted by the New York Rangers, and Herb Brooks was the coach, and he thought that would be an amazing experience for me to be a part of that program, as it was for all those guys in 1980, the U.S. team. And he called Dave King and kind of set it all up, I think. So with Craig Patrick and Herb Brooks, they got together with Dave King, and I was on my way to Calgary about a day later, and I got to play with some great players, Pat Flatley and James Patrick and Kerry Wilson and Dave Tippett, and a lot of good players. That a lot of the guys on that team, Russ Courtnall, Kirk Muller, a lot of guys, almost all of us played in the NHL off that team. So it was a good group to learn from.
What was that experience like, Dave? Getting to play the Olympics for your country? Obviously, NHL players weren't playing when we were playing in the National Hockey League, but you got that opportunity, and now the NHL players are going to play. Well, maybe not the next Olympics, but they have been. So that must have been a great experience.
I mean, you can imagine we were all like, I was a junior age kid, so was Kirk Muller and Russ Courtnall. But I mean, we had a lot of college age guys as well. We're a young team, and I don't think anybody, that Miracle on Ice movie, it truly was a miracle, because we lived it 4 years later, and we played in those Olympics against those teams. I do not know how the U.S. team could beat that Russian team. I mean, it was the Soviets at the time. I mean, we played them in '84 in our first game after the round robin, because we did make it to the medal round, and I don't think we touched the puck. I mean, they beat us 3-0, but it should have been 10-0. And I think we only had 5 shots on goal, and Tretiak was in net. So, we didn't score. It was just, I don't know how the U.S. I mean, it was very impressive what Herb Brooks was able to do with that group of amateurs at the time. It might have been a perfect storm. There's words, the Soviets weren't very happy. The players in that group weren't very happy. So they didn't play at their best. That's what we hear. But still, I mean, they were the best hockey players from their country. They weren't allowed to come over and play in North America at the time. And we got to play against them in '84. But the whole year for me was and I'm sure every guy in that team would say the same thing, just learning how to play the game a different way. When you're playing North America, you grow up. I mean, it's just, get the puck out, get the puck in, dump and chase, forecheck hard, run the D, try to get turnover. These guys, it was all about skill. It was about keeping the puck. They didn't even care about face-off percentage. I bet you we won every draw. They didn't care. They'd get the puck back and they'd keep it the rest of the game. Like, their skill level was off the charts, and it made us all realize, man, we got to get a lot better. I mean, these guys were good. Like, they were one-on-one good, and they could keep the puck, and you couldn't do anything about it. So it was very much a learning a great experience for me to tell me that I had a long way to go. I thought it was pretty good, but I wasn't even close. That's what it taught me. So
go a little bit further on that. What do you think about Hockey Canada? Do you think that they should start looking at building some programs like that, like the U.S. Development Program, so that their players grow up in that atmosphere and that Olympic, Olympic experiences?
Well, I think they do the best they can with what they're allowed to do right now. The CHL is going to obviously not have that. That's not in their best interest to have that happen, that program type of model. But they do a good job. The Hockey Canada does a really good job with at least program of excellence and starting players at 16 years of age, 17 years of age, getting as many players involved in that as possible, going to summer camps. Sometimes for us, it's a little frustrating as agents because our players are always moving around all the time in the summer, and we'd like them to stay still a little bit more and focus on just, developing on a more of a schedule and enjoying their family lives during the summer. But I understand that, there's other things that Hockey Canada has to do, and they give a lot of kids a lot of great opportunities. And that's, I think we're doing a good job with that. I really believe that, but I don't know if we could have that U.S. program kind of thing, because I think it'd be a lot of pushback from, a lot of teams in the CHL if you had
Hockey League.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, the fact is, I mean, some of the intangibles that can't be taught but have to be experienced firsthand are really there for you guys to grasp. I mean, just think of simple things like your boys playing against men. There's lots of travel, dealing with time zones, hotels, eating in odd hours, all these little things that are part of the NHL life that most of these kids never experience outside of some long bus rides playing junior.
No, but that's what the American League's for. A lot of these people think so.
Yeah, true.
Hey, Squid, we call it like long runways, no takeoffs in the American Hockey League. You're on buses all the time, and we call it the always hungry league as well. So I think that is a great thing to have a national program. But I like I said, I think there'd be a lot of pushback. Like, I left my team my last year of junior. I don't think it made our owner very happy. Yeah, losing his top player, one of the top players at 19, when you're trying to win a Memorial Cup. You get a lot of pushback, I think. But yeah, you're right. I mean, playing as men made me better. But I still struggled when I got to the NHL. I still had a tough time when I went to New York. It just, it's a different game at the NHL level. Everybody's bigger, stronger, faster, confident. The difference between NHL guys and American League guys a lot is confidence, like just the belief that you belong and can make a difference every day. Some of the guys in the American League that I played with were good players, but they just didn't have that swagger. They didn't have that swagger, they always kind of felt inferior for some reason. I don't know why, but there were good players in the American League that didn't need to be there all the time. They could have went up. I think it's getting, it's different nowadays, Squid. Like, when we played, if you played in the American League for more than 2 years, like, you're kind of buried, right? But now there's actually
you're done.
Yeah, now there's a plan. Like, we've got clients like Taylor Radish, for example. He's played 3 years in Syracuse, Tampa. Now he's in Tampa, like, because of a bit of the cap, but he's a good player. Now he's going to get a chance to play in Tampa. So, and he deserves a chance because he's a really good player that's always played on championship teams growing up with the Marlies, Erie Otters. He's always won wherever he's gone. Played for, the World Junior team. But now there's a plan in place for these kids. They play 3 years in the American League, and now they go to the NHL, and they're ready. They're ready. They're not giving up on, like, in our era, we were giving up on if you played in the American League too long. It was kind of crazy.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I mean, what I also like, Gabe, is the fact that I think the NHL and the American League in general are using the ECHL a lot more for some of their younger players. Get their feet wet pro hockey wise, let them play a half a season down there, call them up to the American League. Like, the ECHL is not the same league than when I coached in the 90s. It's a far better league now. It's a good league. There's good players. And I think players 20 years old, 21 years old, sometimes can benefit from that. Get to play a little bit more, play in all situations.
Yeah, definitely.
Then they get to the American League and they know what to do. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, there's only 10 forwards at the East Coast League level, so you get to play more.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's better than sitting on the bench. I mean, if you're not going to play in the American League team you're on, it's a good level to do it. And as long as you trust the system, I mean, that's up to the organization that's running it. So, like Vegas has Henderson and they have Fort Wayne. So, as long as there's a plan for the player that goes down to Fort Wayne, he knows he's coming back to Henderson. He's going to play, maybe next year. He knows he's going to play as long as he does his job. As long as he, doesn't, fool around and come out of shape. He knows he's going to get a chance to play in Henderson the next year. And then he takes a step up to Vegas maybe in 2 years. So as long as players know that they're part of a plan and they're actually, as long as they put the work in, they're going to get rewarded. Not every player is going to get rewarded, obviously, but as long as there's that chance and they know it, I think you have to show that commitment to the players, and then it turns out for a lot of guys, it's not like it used to be. Though. You were buried before if you went down to the East Coast League in the 90s,
unless you were a tough guy or a goalie, then you had a chance.
Yeah.
But if you weren't a tough guy or a goalie, you weren't going anywhere. And Justin being in Cincinnati now, I see Buffalo. They're affiliated with Buffalo and Rochester. They've got 7-8 guys down there that are under contract to either Buffalo or the Amherst.
Yeah.
And they're getting an opportunity to play in all situations. And I think that's great for the players.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Well, if you think about it, boys, I mean, here it is. I mean, because the minors, there's always been a belief, and I'm sure you guys probably, Squid didn't end up there, but, Dave, going to the minors, everybody thinks it's purgatory. But to a young player, all of a sudden you're a kid barely shaven, playing against guys who are seasoned veterans. Sometimes they're very bitter with take no prisoner attitudes because they may be, as you guys mentioned, buried 2 years, and they're trying to get noticed any way they can with one last shot at it. So if anything, as a young player, this is a real wake-up call about what life's really like as being a pro hockey player. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I think, there are guys that go right from junior to the NHL, and they don't really appreciate exactly how lucky they are, fortunate they are to get that opportunity. So the guys that go to the American League, though, it's what I liked about last year because of the pandemic. Some of our top 02 players, guys who were born in 2002, got to go and play in the American League because the OHL wasn't going. So we had a handful of guys go and play in the American League, and what a great experience for these guys to go and play against men 2 years early. And then find out, what, it's not so easy. Exactly. Everybody's like, I don't want to play in the American. You know what? It's a hard league. It's a hard league. Yeah. And you know what you have, and now you get to a point where you played 5 or 6 games, you have no points, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not as good as I thought I was. Well, it's not necessarily about that. It's about, well, now you got to fight back. Okay. So now you have to actually work and plan and figure out how you're going to succeed. And that's what keeps you in the NHL for years is that learning your personal plan about how to live every day and how to go to work, how to get better and how to be reliable and how to be consistent as a player so your coach trusts you. Those are the things you learn at the American League level. And for these guys that were born in 2002 and 2001 in some cases got to play in the American League last year, I thought it was unbelievable. We had Quentin Byfield and Connor McMichael and Luke Evangelista and Will Cooley and Jamie Drysdale. They all got to go play in the American League, and I think it's going to make them all so much better, for that experience. So that's great.
From an ages perspective, you got a situation where European. I think it's over now, and I think they have to renegotiate it. European players are allowed to play in the American League at 18 or 19 years old. Mm-hmm. Canadian and American kids are not allowed to. So
NHL kids,
do you think that there's a possibility that'll change?
Well, this year it has.
Or not?
This year it has. So kids that played, I think, a minimum of 20 or 25 games last year in the American League are allowed to do it. So, a kid that played last year, but I think it's going to be a one-time thing. But I think there should be a wild card, at least something like that, because some kids, they've outgrown the OHL at the 18. But you try to tell, an owner in the Ontario Hockey League, we're going to lose their top player, then they're not going to buy into that. And I don't blame them. I mean, geez, they've got a business to run. So, but it's a tough sell. The CHL is controls a lot of those decisions. Squid, so it's tough. It does make sense that some of these kids should be in the American League, like Thomas Liljegren coming over when he was 18 years old. He's playing for the Marlies, and it's more than he can handle at 18. But he's playing there because he's allowed to. Whereas all our kids get 2 more years of junior, right? So, so there's a lot of politics and
Politics, yeah.
trying to get around all these things is part of it. But at the end of the day, it's about, these kids learning how to work and learning how to get better and learning how to be professionals. I mean, that's what we're trying to help. Yeah.
Well, let's go back to you and let's talk about you a little bit and your experiences. So your draft year, the draft for both you guys was a little different in your era than it is today. What kind of talk are you hearing throughout your draft year? I mean, you're obviously put up some big numbers. You're with the Olympic team, so things were going fairly well from that standpoint. Were you hearing any kind of buzz at all?
Well, I'd been drafted by the New York Rangers the previous year, first round.
Sorry, yeah, it's great.
So that it's kind of, but Squid will tell you, like, just because you're drafted, it doesn't mean. I mean, it's just an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's all it is. You're drafted first round. You might get more opportunities as a first round pick than maybe the second or third or sixth round pick, but not much. Like they don't have a lot of patience. So you either get it done pretty quick or you get traded or you whatever. And I ended up not doing very well in New York. It was and it's not just the hockey too. I mean, try to go from Chatham to Manhattan. I mean, it's like it's a little bit different, and then you're dealing with guys that are late 20s, early 30s now, and they're having fun with you. They're just carving you every day. So you go from being a star in junior to just being carved every day like you're a whipping boy, and it's just all part of the game. But you have to learn how to have thick skin and get through it. But yeah, it was different. Yeah, I mean. I did not do well in New York though, but it helped me. It helped me grow, and it helped me when I was lucky to get another opportunity in Minnesota, and I made the most of that one.
Well, I want to talk about your draft year because the year you got drafted, but also where I was going with this was, do you find it amusing or are you amazed now at the work, preparation, posturing, political stuff that all goes on with the draft today versus you guys? All you're basically doing is sitting there waiting for a phone call for the next few days after this draft supposedly took place.
Yeah, well, we went to Montreal, right? We got drafted, and I remember Jeff Jackson said, our agents just set us up. They took a train there, from Toronto to Montreal, took a train, and lifestyle was a little different back then. Guys were probably boozing it up a little bit, but they're young kids, and they're like, it was just totally different. Like nowadays you're not allowed to do that, but then it was like we were treated like we were 25, 30-year-olds, and we were 17, 18, having about 10 beers on the bus kind of thing on the way down to the draft to get drafted. So a little bit different time. You kind of think you got it made when you get drafted, but you're not. You don't even realize you're not even close. You don't. You're like I said, it's just an opportunity to try out for the team when you get there, but you've got to. They play for keeps when you go to pro, man. It's like these guys are ruthless. They will rip your arm off to get the puck. So,
Dave, what do you think? What was the biggest adjustment from going from there to your first pro camp? What was the biggest thing that you saw in the game and everything that you needed to get better at, or that surprised you maybe? That obviously you had the skill, you could skate.
Yeah,
there must have been something.
But it probably puck battles is probably the hardest thing. Like it's so hard to win a puck away from a guy that's a seasoned veteran. They get their big body in the way, and you're just like a little kid trying to swat it with a fly swatter, and you're not getting a puck from them. Like you have to learn how to get your ass in front of them and protect the puck, and you got to do it with a lot of motivation and effort and determination. And I was a kitten my first couple of years. I mean, I was just I was so soft on the puck. I mean, you could just like move me away from the puck. Like I had to learn how to be. And you know what? I had a friend tell me that. Like Grant Ledyard was a guy I played with in New York at the time. He's a young guy too, and he goes, "I go, what do you think my problem is?" He goes, "You're weak on the puck. Like I can take it from you anytime I want." So it's like in junior, I could just go and I'd go end to end if I wanted, like not every time, but you know what I mean? I could beat guys with my skating. But at the NHL level, you're not beating guys with your skating anymore. They can all move and they're men and they're man strong, and they don't give you the puck. I mean, you try being New York Rangers my first year and playing against Dennis Potvin or Brian Trottier. Like, how's that for your confidence level playing against those two guys? Like, Brian Trottier could do whatever he wanted against me. I could not. Like, I mean, it was just, he was so good. It was unbelievable. Like, he was like 5'11" squared and just win faceoffs either way, forehand, backhand, take it to the net, give it to Bossy, another minus for me. Like, it was just, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for that. So I had to go to work, I mean, that's basically it, but you have to get a chance too. I mean, I almost got traded to Edmonton, if you can, visualize that, before the Minnesota deal happened. If I would have got traded to Edmonton, I would not have had a career because they were so good. I wouldn't have played. There's no way I would have played. Like, I would have been in the minors, and I think they were in Nova Scotia then, Edmonton's farm team, if I'm not mistaken. But I wouldn't have played. So you got to get a little luck, and I was ready for the second chance.
Well, I was going to say you were up and down with the Rangers. Obviously, there was an adjustment. Obviously, it was a little overwhelming for you going to your first camp and playing with the Rangers and how good these guys were and all that. We've addressed a lot of that. But, what was your mindset going through all this as you're going up and down with the Rangers? I mean, was it real frustration, or were you just simply figuring I'm too far down the depth chart to really get a shot?
Well, I mean, when you're in it, in the middle of it, you're kind of a little bit bitter, and you don't really understand that they're right. Like, they were right. Like, I wasn't good enough yet. Like, and at the time I was kind of like, my nose was out of joint. I felt like they were treating me poorly, and they sent me down. Like, I probably got sent down 10 times. I ended up playing 125 games, I think, in New Haven, something like that. But when I look back on it, it was the greatest experience I could have ever had, because, I mean, I got to grow and I got to play a lot in New Haven. I mean, now sometimes these kids go to the American League and they don't even play. I mean, how depressing is that? Like, at least I get sent down and I'm like, at least I played. I played PK, I played power play, played everything, I mean, so you get better, you're playing against men. They're not NHL players, but you're playing against men. And, you've got to be successful at the American League level or you're not coming back, right? Like, if I go down there and totally shit the bed, I'm not playing. My career is over. So that's what I like about it too, is it forces you to rev up your game and go, I got to get it going. Like, and it's not easy at the American League level. The guys you're playing with, I'm not trying to say, I'm not trying to say negative about anybody in the American League, but they're not they're not Connor McDavid, right? So you're playing against guys that aren't quite, or with guys that aren't quite as skilled. They bring an attribute that's very important to the game, but they're not quite as skilled. So it's harder to make plays, and you've got to do more on your own at the American League level than I think the NHL level. But you learn, you've got to be the guy that drives the play. You have to be that guy. And that's what I try to tell a lot of kids. It's just like, don't be a guy that waits for the puck. You've got to be the guy that makes a difference. Then it doesn't matter who you play with, because you're the guy that drives the play. Everybody wants to play with you, but if you're the guy that wants to be relying on others, you're going to get in trouble, because, you're not always going to play with who you want to play with. Coaches have a say in that, right? So you've got to change your mindset a little bit and go, no, I'm the guy that makes the play. Not that you have to be the playmaker, I'm saying, but you have to be a guy that asserts yourself into the play and makes a difference. You go and win the puck battle. You go and take it to the net. You go and keep it alive, like poking it away from the goalie or whatever. Like, you've got to be the guy that makes a difference in a shift. The one thing about goal scoring, Squid, is like, you might not be the guy that gets the goal, but by you trying to get open and going to that far post or whatever, you've created something for somebody else behind you, and then they score. But if you just stand there, you create nothing, and you're a pylon, then you're not really adding to the play. So always trying to create something, whether it's with just movement or winning a battle or whatever, finishing a check. That's what kind of I learned at the American League level was, made me a little bit more of a, and that coupled with my experience at the National League team, learning about skill from playing against the Soviets and the Czechs and Swedes and all that I learned I had to get better at those things too. So, it was a lot of work I had to put into it. So, but, so you go back in the summer to where, I was going to school in the summers, but I trained harder than ever than I used to train. Like I would make sure I was getting bigger and stronger. I mean, I'm only 5'10" on a good day. And, so I had to get stronger. Right. So anybody can get stronger and anybody can get faster and anybody can get, better endurance and be better conditioned. And so I took care of that and then that's what I learned. And that's what we try to help our young guys with now and always staying with it. I think the one thing I know that I had for sure as a player was perseverance. I was not going to quit. I was not going to fail. I was going to go mad trying to make it as a hockey player. Yeah.
Well, that was good. I mean, you were able to do that. And then, from then get to the National League, finally get an opportunity, take advantage of that opportunity, and then finish out a really good career. There was a lot of guys back then in the minors, though, that were so bitter, and they thought it was someone else's fault. And I think what you just said is, be the guy, take control, and be the guy to go out and make yourself a better player in whatever department you have to. I think that's so important. But I remember so many guys that were so bitter about getting sent down, and I'm like, hey, maybe you're just not good enough, or maybe you don't care enough.
Yeah.
I think that's so important,
Well, I mean, I can remember, okay, so I just got married. My wife and I were driving to Minnesota for training camp. And I can remember I'd played 4 full seasons pro. And I was really ready to take off as a player. I felt the best I'd ever felt, and got to the border and I got my visa at the border. When you go across the border, Squid, they give you your visa you have to go into the office because you got to get your work visa. If you're Canadian, you're going to play in the US. Gave me an H2 visa. And I go, well, what is that? I usually get an H1 visa. And they go, well, that's for the guys that play in the minors. I went, really? So that was in Fort Huron. We still had 14 hours to go to Minnesota. I didn't speak. My wife was trying to talk to me. I didn't speak. I was like so pissed. I was like, screw them. So I mean, even though I got traded to Minnesota and I played a bit my 4th year pro for Minnesota, they didn't expect me to make the team the 5th year. I wasn't penciled in. So, you don't get handed anything. You got to go out and grab it. You got to go out and grab it. And at least I turn that. I remember Mike Keenan saying one thing. I don't care if you're negative, but it better be high energy negative. He doesn't like, he didn't like dead asses. Just don't be low energy. You can be low energy positive or low energy negative. I want you to be high energy. You can be positive or negative. I don't care, but you got to be high energy, and I agree with that. At least do something about it, whether you're a complainer or whatever, but still you got to go at it. You know what I mean? You gotta go out there and compete and go, you're not sending me. And they tried to send me down that year, my 5th year, they tried to send me down and I went, no, I'm not going. And they Pierre Paget and Jack Ferraro were the guys trying to send me down. They were like, what do you mean? And I go, I'm not going. I just led our team in scoring and exhibition. I'm not going. You can't just always shit on the same guys. Forget it. And they go, well, we've already made the roster move, so you got to go. And I go, well, I'm not. So I'll see you later. So I walked out and I went back to our apartment where we were staying. And my wife goes you've gone through too much. You've worked too hard. Give it the weekend and see what happens, So I did go down to Kalamazoo for the weekend. Well, Minnesota went 0-3 in their first 3 games, and they called me back up after the weekend. We played Tuesday against Boston. I can remember it vividly still, even though it was 1988 or whatever. And I got 2 goals and 2 assists against Boston my first game, and I never went back. So that's when it took off for me. But I had to you almost have peace of mind. You're like, I'm ready to just, I'm okay going back to school now because I know I gave it my best, but I wasn't going to let them continue because they do that at the NHL level. You're kind of labeled, right? You're kind of like, they put you, they pigeonhole you and go, you're that kind of player. And when I got traded from New York to Minnesota, I was an exchange of minor leaguers. That's what it was, right? So there wasn't even names mentioned. So I mean, it's kind of like you got to go and reinvent yourself a little bit.
Well, Dave, let me stop you there because I was going to say to you, listen, I was going to lead with, some say the Lord works in mysterious ways. Well, so do the hockey gods, because right along those line of thinking as you're talking in 1988, not only did you come back and play 75 games, you led the team in scoring, by the way, by 19 points. I know you're being very modest about that. Played with an edge, had over 100 minutes in penalties. It's not like they didn't have good players. So you're suggesting part of your magical formula was just really confident. You said, that's enough. I'm not taking this anymore, and I'm going to go and play.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be productive as a player. I mean, Squid, you were always productive. I mean, you always scored, and you were able to get that consistency in your game. I had that problem early on, but I wasn't having it anymore. So I had to learn how to be consistent every night and kind of manufacture anger, so to speak, when I played. So I started to do that. They started putting me on the power play because I was scoring 5-on-5. Well, that's the one thing. Kids go, I can't score because you never put me on the power play. I'm like, well, you know what? If you score 5-on-5, we'll put you on the power play. So you learn you got to be a good 5-on-5 player first, right? So it's kind of like it's a league where you have to really grab it. You have to learn to get your game on the ice every shift because you might not get another one. And I learned that the hard way, but I didn't quit. And I got lucky. I mean, a bit. I mean, who knows what would have happened if I didn't go to Kalamazoo for that weekend, but yeah, it was hard. But once you do make it and you're getting regular opportunity, it's not as hard as you thought it would be, you know what I mean? Because you're getting opportunity now and you're playing with good players. I got to play with a lot of good players in Minnesota, Brian Bellows and Dino Cicerelli, and then Mike Madonna came and Brian Prop. I mean, a lot of good forwards that I played with. Obviously I can't name everybody, but they're, Ulf Dahlin. Ulf Dahlin was like, talk about strong on the puck, Squid. Like, I could go and get a water break while Ulfie's in the corner going back and forth with the puck, protecting it. I could go for a water break and then come back. And then, okay, now he's ready to take it to the net. Like, there were some guys that were so good at that stuff. And he's Swedish, too. I didn't think they were good at that. But at the time, this is not nowadays because the Swedish players are complete now. But back then, they had the reputation about being very good in open ice, but not great in the corners. But Alfie Dahlin was great in that way. But I got to play with a lot of good players, and it became easier to be successful. You first start off as a young kid and you go, this is really hard. But by the time you're 24, 25, 26, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun playing every day and hanging out with guys common just like you. I mean, they were all the same, and we had a lot of good times. A lot of good times.
It's great.
But it wasn't an easy road. I mean, and I don't think, there's a lot of kids, maybe even today, but more so back in our day, but there probably is today that don't think like that. Do you run into that situation with your job now with some of the kids that just don't get it, and you got to explain to them what they need to do in order to get there?
Yeah, you try to. I mean, we're in a role where we're kind of advisors, right? We're not, we don't hammer them really hard with it, but I mean, we do, probably the most important quality to have as an athlete in any sport, or not just athletics. I mean, any walk of life is, if you want to be successful, you got to persevere and you got to bounce back and figure out another way at it. You've got to formulate a plan to succeed, and you got to execute it. And if you fail, you got to revamp the plan and do it again. Like, you just can't give up. Like, it's not supposed to be easy. Like, it's the old saying, if it was easy, everybody'd do it. Well, there's only 750 players in the NHL in the world, right? So, I mean, it's a lot of guys, but it's not many. There's only 23 jobs, and there's a lot of good players. Like, there's really good players that we have coming out of the OHL that can't get anything. They can't get a spot, even at a camp. You know what I mean? It's just like, and they go, I don't understand how that can happen. But they don't see the whole thing. I mean, all the scouts see the whole. They go to Europe and they go to all these places, and there's a lot of good hockey players in the world. There's a lot of good players, and they got a lot of choices. Now, do they make the right choices all the time? No, but they got a lot of choices, right? So if you want to be one of those guys they choose, you gotta show fire. You know, you gotta fire. You gotta play with a lot of stank and a lot of passion, and it can't be fake passion. You know, I mean, it's got to be true passion. Like you gotta want to play, and we try to tell kids that, and some get it, some don't, and then some kids figure it out later. You know. But,
well, what I want to do is, before you got to that, Dave, let's go back to where, we're down to about our last 15 minutes here. But I wanted to say, talk about the coaching, how you got started in that, and just sort of fast forward to you ended up coaching your son, Johnny Tavares, Justin Vive.
Yeah,
walked in a pretty good team there, to name a few. But of course,
that wasn't a bad team.
You've been away from the minor levels for a long time, being a pro player yourself. So where I'm going with this is, but when you saw these kids play at this level at that age, what was your initial impression? And so just walk us through that.
First of all, just to go back a little bit, we were in Oakville, right?
Yeah.
With Justin, Cody Golubev, and Sam, and you know, did I plan on getting coaching? No, I really didn't plan on it. But then when you start watching the games, it changes your mind, right? You go, oh my gosh, I got to get into coaching. But I don't mean that as a shot at anybody. It's just the way it is. I mean, honestly, if you've been a player for that long, you cannot go to games and go, oh, I've got an idea and I want to go and translate it. Well, you can't do that as a parent because it's not really welcome, right? So you got to get into coaching in order to provide those years of wisdom we've learned, right? So, and you know, my son had a really passion for the game. We built a backyard rink in our home, and he loved to play. I mean, was he the best player at that age? No, but you know, he had a brain for the game. That was the one thing I'll say about him. No matter what anybody says about Sam, he was always smart, always could figure out things on the ice, could make plays, had a good awareness of where everybody was. Wasn't the fastest kid, but we had a line that said, I can't turn you from a turtle into a rabbit, but you'd be a really fast turtle. And my wife would say, you're awful. And I go, well, geez, I'm just trying to be honest with you. But you know what? He works, and he likes, he loves to play, and he'd spend 30 hours, 40 hours a week in that rink, just working on his hands and skills and learning little tricks and stuff. And a lot of the boys would come over, and, you know, eventually we started playing for the Marlies, and Tavares came on. So we had a lot of good players on that team. You know, guys have gone on to play pro, and almost all of them went at least played college hockey. Not at least, but went on to play a lot of good hockey. All those kids were special, though. All those kids had great hockey sense, and we had so much fun. And they're all friends today. Like Justin's come to our cottage over the years. Hey Rick. I mean, yeah. I mean, he's a great kid. You know, hasn't changed much. He's just a lot bigger. You know. But you know, we had Tavares was a special player. Everybody knew. I mean, he wasn't the fastest kid either, but he could score. You know, and we had Brian Cameron was a great captain. Brian's back coaching now in I think the junior Canadian system in the GTHL. So he's giving back now. But great, you know, a lot of, Keem Alou, we had Brendan Smith, Cody Golubev, guys that played games in the NHL. I think we had 5 or 6 guys that played NHL games. But a really special group. You know, they say good coaches recruit good players, right? So we had probably, I mean, some people say it was the best minor hockey team they've ever seen. It's probably not the case, but it's one of them. I mean, we had some good years, especially at the end. The minor midget year was a very strong year where we had troubles when we first got together beating the Red Wings. Remember that, Squid? Couldn't beat the Toronto Red Wings. Couldn't beat them. And then once we beat them, we never lost them again. And then we just waxed them. by the time we were minor midget. Now it sounds like a couple of dads like, yay, we did it, But the kids did it, and they learned how to compete because we used to call them. They were intimidated by the Toronto Red Wings at the time. Intimidated, like we can't beat them. They're bigger, stronger, faster, whatever. So we started calling. They played out of Chestwood, so we started calling them the Chestwood Chicken Wings in front of the kids. So just to kind of shrink them a bit. so once we beat them, and kids started to get a lot better, and by minor midget, we had a really good year, and all those kids went on to. We had a lot of kids drafted really high in the OHL draft, I think, and gone on to play a lot of hockey over the years.
Squid.
It was a fun group.
Those were amazing years. I mean, I at that point I didn't know what the heck. I was already done coaching. I coached 7 years in the minors, and no desire to get behind the bench anymore. All I did was sit in the furthest corner I could find and just loved to watch those kids play. It was just unbelievable how they never get. And the funniest thing about that year was I'm watching Hockey Night in Canada one night, and you know how Don Cherry always goes to minor midget games. So they asked him about it, and they said, "You go to see the Marlies play a lot?" And he goes, "No." He said, "I never go watch those guys." And then McLean said, "Well, why not?" He goes, "Well," he says, "they don't give up the puck." I said, "Well, isn't that the point of the game? If you have the puck all night, you're not going to lose."
Yeah.
And that was kind of the way we played.
Hey, Dave, I got a question for you. Now, even though Sam is a good player, okay, this is as a parent coach. You still must have had to deal with the parents at some point because their Wayne Gretzky, Bobby Orr, all wrapped into one son, was probably playing behind yours. And Rick, you could probably comment on this too, but more along for Dave. Did you have to listen to any music from parents, or did you lay the ground rules down early to get that dreaded hockey out of your face?
We had a little buffer. Like I was really the assistant coach.
Okay.
Like, I mean, I ran most of the practices, but James Naylor was our head coach, and he was great with people. Like James could handle the crowd. Like, I mean, and he was good to the parents, and he was able to, and he ran the forwards. I mean, I did not, I ran the D. So I wasn't in charge of Justin and Sam's ice time, or Tavares's ice time. So I used to say to him, like, "You better put Johnny on the ice," because I could see Barb over there and she's looking a little pissed off. You got a little red dot in your forehead. So you better put Johnny out there. So, but yeah, I mean, I think it went really smoothly, but I hear after a few years later there was a little bit of rumblings, but that's to be expected. I mean, of course. Parents they spend a lot of time, a lot of money putting their kids in hockey, and we don't like to hear it as coaches, but they deserve some type of form at some point. So you have to listen to them because it's not all a one-way street. I mean, I know some coaches I'm not talking to the parents. Oh, well, you gotta talk to them sometimes. I mean, they care. Now you don't have to give them, an hour, but you do have to listen to them and try to at least be fair. Yeah, but it was fun. I mean, like I said, these kids all stick together still. I mean, they still stay in touch and have a really fondness for one another, a lot of camaraderie over the years because they just had so much success together. They really loved it. And now they're all kind of getting back into it, I think. Sam and Johnny are back with the Marlies trying to help that organization now. And Brian Cameron, like I said, is coaching with the JRC program. And Steven Tarasak, I think, is coaching our midget team this year, the Marlies, or not our team, but the Marlies team. So it's great to see all these kids getting back. I mean, it's, what 16 years later now, they're back into it. So
yeah, it would be 32. That'd be probably right.
That's right. It is 16 years. Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that because I coached the young Nats for 1 year, minor midget.
Yeah, you had a couple good players, didn't you?
I had Skinner and Sagan. They weren't too shabby.
Not too bad.
But the funny thing was, I had 5 parents who hated me and complained every day. I had 5 parents that that really liked me and didn't say a word, and then I had 5 parents that were in between. Now the goal was to keep those 5 parents that were in between away from the ones that hated me. And if I can do that, then it'd be 10 on 5. So I'd be okay.
Well, Dave, now you ended up with the London Knights as an assistant. You now had been sort of experienced hockey from the minor level as a coach. You moved up. You'd played in NHL, AHL, all these different levels, and I'm even going now. Maybe when you became director of player personnel or director of player development with the Canucks, having watched players,
the only thing left for him is to be the trainer. For Christ's sake,
we haven't got to that part. We haven't got to that part yet.
Yeah,
we haven't even got to the part where he's making the ice too. So we haven't got to that. What I want to get from you is AAA kids, as they used to say, carry themselves much differently than a single player. Like they walk better, they talk better, they dress better, they just carry themselves better all around. Confident people have that. What was a trait you saw from all the different levels you were involved with and coached and player director? They must have all carried some similar quality, no matter whether they were 10, 20, or 30.
Yeah, I mean, the guys that are really, really good have an aura about them. Like they know they're good, and they know what they have to do to maintain that. Like I always said, like Pat Kane, we had him in London just for the 1 year, but man, was he confident. Like we had him in for our quarterly meeting kind of thing, and he had, I'm going to say, like 35 points in 20 games. And we said, yeah, it's pretty good quarter, whatever. And he goes, no, I was awful. I've been awful. He goes, I'm way better than this. He goes, I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to pick it up. And we thought, okay, whatever. He likes almost 2 points a game. Well, he ended up getting 150 points a year or something like that. He was ridiculous how good he was. But, the one thing about Pat Kane that I always say to people is when he was playing a game, if he didn't feel he was the best player on the ice, without question, it pissed him off. Like he was jealous. So he had to go out there and then he'd turn it up. Like if he had a bad first period, like forget it. The other team was done. Like second and third, he just like, you couldn't get the puck off him. Like the plays he'd make around the net were just ridiculous. His awareness was off the charts. Like he wasn't fast, but like I always say to people, like the back checkers would swing and he'd get the puck standing still in the neutral zone, and all he'd do, and this guy's going 100 miles an hour beside him, it was a back checker. He just put himself in the lane and the guy would push him. And the Pat would get going. Like, it was just like, most of us are like going fast as we can, staying wide, and the guy comes and knocks the puck off our stick. Pat would just put his body in the lane and the guy would push him and they go, here we go. And then he just like zoop, zoop, zoop. He was just brilliant. Like, I don't know who taught him that. Like, he just knew how to do it. He just knows how to play the game instinctively. That's very, very special. And he's been able to do it for years at the NHL level. I mean, he's one of the most special kids I've ever been involved with, but was he easy to talk to? No, like he's not really coachable because he doesn't need a coach. Like, it's just like, put me out there. You're in grade 12. I'm like going for my PhD. Like, so, I mean, yeah, I think confidence is probably the biggest thing. You see guys like Nate McKinnon. He's a confident person. I met him. He's a confident kid. Like he knows he's good. Connor McDavid's humble about it, but he knows he's great. Like, I mean, Connor really handles it well. I mean, and same kind of thing. Connor wants to be the best every shift. He doesn't like it when he's not the best, Yeah, it's just high standards, probably.
Yep. That's probably what I was looking for.
Very high standards all these kids have, Like Connor's not happy unless he's the best player in the world. So it's tough because it's not easy to do that. There's a lot of good players.
Well, we're down to the last minute, boys. Squid, any last thoughts for Dave? We've kept him long enough, I think, today.
No, just fond memories of those days back with the Marlies and going over and watching the kids play on the outdoor rink and battle like crazy. Those games they got into sometimes got a little crazy. Those kids. Oh,
I always thought
it was a lot of fun to watch.
I always think it's funny, like, when they're playing games sometimes in the NHL and like the passion isn't always there. And I can see fans, they can see it. But I'm like, how about when you were in the backyard rink and Johnny did this to you or Justin did this to you? You'd like slash them. Like, you like were so mad. Like, and that game meant absolutely nothing but for pride, right? So it's tough if you can get your state of mind to be the same as you were as a kid in the backyard. You break your best friend's arm to get the puck back in the backyard. But
it was fun to watch. I can tell you that. It was,
it's a lot of good memories. A lot of good memories, and that rink is something that Sam still doesn't forgive us for selling that house. So I think Sam's gonna, when he's done playing, I'm pretty sure he's gonna try to put a rink in somewhere wherever he lives. So, yeah.
Well, guys, Dave, we want to thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
We didn't get to everything, but anyway, we could talk to you forever. So thanks so much for it all.
Okay.
Best of luck with Wasserman and some of the kids moving forward. We'll be watching for them.
Appreciate it, guys. Yeah, thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, take
Good
care.
to see you.
Thanks, David.
Yeah.